Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Town Manager Download, a podcast about local government and the town of Shrewsbury. I'm Kevin Mizikar, Town Manager of the town of Shrewsbury, and as always, I'm joined by Communications Coordinator Taylor Galusha. In today's episode, we're also joined by Alex Martinez, Assistant to the Town Manager, Management Analyst, and we're going to take a deep dive into the budgeting process for the town of Shrewsbury. So, welcome, Taylor and Alex.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
How's it going? What's going on, Taylor?
Just getting ready for Christmas. We did all our Italian cookie making extravaganza on Saturday.
Nice.
With an intermission to go to my cousin's rec basketball game. It's a 3rd to 5th graders, so very invigorating. I was happy
dunking?
Oh yeah.
Yeah? Nice.
No, it was fun to be able to do that though, just because I don't live near them anymore. So it's nice when I get to participate in the school activities. So.
I didn't see any extra cookies on the counter in the office today. None made it in.
You guys will have to wait a little bit.
That's good. So we were fortunate to be able to celebrate the 296th birthday of the incorporation of the town of Shrewsbury on Friday, December 15th. So moving in the direction of getting the committee set up and celebrating the 300th here in a couple years. So a lot of plans and preparations to go into that, but we had an enjoyable celebration at the town hall on Friday. So thanks to all town and staff members and other special guests that were able to join us at the town hall that day. So anything else? What's going on? What's up in the shrew? Anything of note?
Nothing huge since our last episode, but the one other thing I wanted to add was about the senior tax work-off program applications. Super important program for the seniors in our town, which allows them to work a certain amount of hours with the town and get, I think it's a $2,000 tax credit, or off their real estate taxes. So, the applications are on the Council on Aging's website and also available at the Council on Aging, on the town hall campus. And they're being accepted now through January 29th. So, if you're not sure if you qualify, please check it out. If you know you qualify, then get your application in.
So everyone did just hear Taylor right. It's $2,000 is the 2024 credit that you are going to receive. That is up. That's more than twice what it was in the current year. So it was like $951 this year. So because of some changes in the state law and the way we'll budget for this moving forward, we will be able to offer some additional relief to taxpayers that are eligible through this program. It is limited to 20 different individuals, but it is a $2,000 credit that we'll be able to offer. So that's a big change.
Yeah. And
maybe we'll find our way talking about some level of detail of budgeting about that. So again, a little bit different episode, where we're just going to dive right into the details of the conversation, and Alex is already in here with us, and let's just get started. So we always want to start in the same spot, though. Alex, we like folks to be able to get to know our guests a little bit more detail. So why don't you tell us a little bit how you ended up in local government, how long you've been with the town of Shrewsbury, and what your role is with the town.
Sure, happy to do so. So I have been with the town for about 4.5 years, which seems crazy to say. I started out as an administrative assistant in the office of the town manager and select board, and I've been in my current role of management analyst for about 3 years. My path to local government was pretty standard in the sense that it was never really on my radar. I have an undergrad degree in business administration from Western New England University, and up until my senior year, I kind of saw myself going into the private sector and doing either event or sport management. However, I had a really flexible schedule my senior year, and I took on a part-time job at a nonprofit, starting out with really administrative work, but I very quickly fell in love with their mission and the work that they were doing. So it was an organization that served the towns in what's referred to as the Quabog region, so the group of rural towns in central Mass. And they provided assistance to small businesses, and they did community and economic development. And I was fortunate enough to be offered a full-time job right before I graduated. So I learned a lot. I had a really great mentor there who involved me in all aspects of the organization. And I think that's where I kind of found my passion of public service. I realized that the private sector probably really wasn't for me. I really thrived on getting to be a part of a sense of community and being able to kind of give back and that sense of place and people. So I spent 4 years there, and then it was time for my next challenge and next chapter, and I was fortunate to end up at the town of Shrewsbury.
Okay, so what is that? How did you start with the town? Like, what was that first role, and then, yeah, where do you find yourself today, and what maybe have you done since coming on board with the town, through training or programs or other things like that to help build your skill set that you use on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So I started out as the administrative assistant, and I assisted the select board with licensing. I handled all of the aspects of the licensing process. I also did accounts payable and payroll, and I got to become involved in the process of town meeting. And when I initially thought of management analyst as a role, I thought of math, and that was a little intimidating. But I feel like what it really comes down to is attention to detail and the little things. And as an introvert, I'm really driven by data and logic and kind of thinking in the little things. So it seemed to be a role that was going to be a challenge, but I've really enjoyed. I get to be involved of all aspects of the development of the budget and also the entire process of town meeting, which has been a really great learning experience.
Great. We appreciate that. We appreciate all your work. You've certainly been within the TM Select Board office your whole time here and have contributed a lot. And also just thinking about the Suffolk certificate program that you took in financial management, right? So you want to talk about that because that's an important thing that folks should pay attention to if they're in a role within the town manager's office or town administrator's office or a similar role and looking to take on a larger role and help their departments build their budget. So can you talk about that program a little bit?
So that was the Intro to Municipal Finance seminar through Suffolk, the partnership program. And it was 5 weeks. It was 5 full Fridays. And it was an introduction to basically all of the administrative and finance aspects of a municipal government. So there was a week on assessing and learning how properties are assessed and how that impacts taxes. There is an impact week on accounting and how municipal accounting is kind of different. It's a great introductory course for anybody who just kind of wants to know how a municipal government is operated. And I know they have a more extended program that lasts about 9 months. So I was able to do the intro, and I would definitely recommend that.
Great. Taylor, you took the same class?
Alex
Anything
did
to
it
add?
First. No, she covered it really good.
She covered it all?
It was helpful that she took it before me so I could come to her for help because she's been there since like day one for me. So
Yep.
always appreciated her support and my continued learning.
Awesome. All right, so today's episode, we want to dive into how we manage the budget internally, really. What folks don't really have the opportunity to see is, which occurs in the earliest phases of the budget process. All of it happens on a decentralized basis, but Alex, you're that anchor point to all of it, from starting with analyzing our revenues, just after we turn the page into the new fiscal year in the late summer, that first communication that goes out to the department heads telling them what to think about and how to build their budgets, and then finalizing the output that is what we call fiscal projection 1, the first budget that the town manager issues in late February. So we're going to roll up our sleeves and get down into the details and how Alex manages all that work on behalf of the office, and we'll see where it takes us. So anyone that's really interested in getting a higher level overview of the budget should refer back to episode 4 with Assistant Town Manager David Snowden, and he provides an overarching view so you can kind of see the budget from end to end, but we really want to focus on this detailed first aspect of the process. So Alex, let's start off where we always start off each year and looking at the revenues and how does the town construct its revenue plan for the ensuing fiscal year, and how do you go about looking at that data when knowing that we're dealing with about $200 million in revenue in any given fiscal year?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, it's our responsibility to present a balanced budget to town meeting, and the first step of that is determining how much revenue we'll have available. So the timing is really interesting because we have to kind of look really far ahead. So, for example, we just published the FY25 revenue manual in November, which is our initial forecast projection for how much revenue we anticipate to receive from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. So we're doing this analysis in the fall of 2023 on revenues that we'll collect in the spring of 2025. So we have to be really analytical and intentional with our data. It's a balancing act. It does benefit the town to have a surplus at the end of the year, but we don't want to be putting ourselves in a position where we're too conservative and leaving funds on the table that could really enhance services for residents. And we don't want to be too aggressive where we're putting ourselves in a position, at any point in the fiscal year where we kind of have to stop spending or cut services. So we rely heavily on various forecasting methods and models, and we look at historical data and prior year actuals to develop the revenue projections, but we also have to take into consideration general economic conditions. So of all the revenue categories that I'm sure Dave had discussed when he was on, we take a really close look at all of them and do our diligent effort to forecast what we'll have.
So this revenue manual is the first step in the process. Dave did talk about that when he was on, but it really is a book that just looks at revenues historically. We look at the trend analysis, and as you talked about, those various models allows us to get to not just a bottom line basis for total revenue, but really different buckets of money because we're limited in how we can spend some of those funds. Of course, our enterprise accounts can only support the activities of those businesses that we run, and they can't go to other general purposes. So it is truly a book that lays out all the resources that we have, and just I'll underscore what Alex said, and the challenge of that is having to look so far ahead. We all want to get excited about the numbers from last year, and then we all get nervous about being fortune tellers 18 months from now, and I think how good.
Yeah, and I think COVID really taught us that you really can't anticipate everything. For example, there was a chip shortage, and that impacted the sale of motor vehicles, and that impacts motor vehicle excise tax revenue. So
right, yeah, certainly not an easy seat to sit in when you want to put the final number on the page and be confident that we're going to get there. But as you said, introducing enough revenues to support the service demands of the entire organization. So, all right, so we start with the revenues, and we get that projection. In some ways, of course, our largest revenue category, which is real estate tax, is the easiest because it's a formula, and we get to calculate that at 2.5%, and then do some forecasting for new growth, which is new things that occur within the community. So we have that in place. How does that get introduced to the community and to department heads?
So the revenue manual is presented to both the select board and the finance committee. It's published on our website, and then it is distributed to department heads along with their budget guidance for the upcoming fiscal year.
So let's turn the page to that aspect of the budget. So we're now want to hear back from department heads. That's where we squarely are actually as we're speaking right now. But so it's budget development time. How do we go about focusing departments into what resources they have available, how we want them to build their budgets, and what our expectations are for them to submit to us, including the tools and features that we use along the way?
Yeah, so our budget guidance is just that. It's a document that is developed. We put into consideration the priorities of the select board. They've already set their fiscal policies and procedures for the upcoming year, so we kind of have that as a benchmark, and we obviously have our number that we anticipate for revenue, so we can kind of give them a benchmark to work from. So that guidance, along with the expectations that we ask of departments as it relates to the budget, is distributed to them. They have about a month to work on their budgets and, try to fit within the parameters of our budget limitations. So, we're in week 3 of that. So budget submissions will be due on Friday. And there's a lot of front end work that kind of goes into preparing that budget guidance. So they're asked to submit their salary and wage information for all their employees, their operating expenses, and then of course the enterprise budgets also have to present a balanced budget for those enterprises. And then there's also the capital budget. So capital budget requests are kind of one-time, usually equipment or vehicle expenses, and that's also part of the submission. So they've been, working diligently on that for the past few weeks.
So
We're doing more one-on-one time with the departments too this year. Do you want to talk about like office hours and
absolutely.
that part of the new budget process?
Yeah. So budget office hours are a new feature to the budget entry process. In thinking about, how we wanted this budget cycle to go, I think one of the areas for improvement that I realized was that departments would submit their budget and then we would kind of come back to the table all together and have one initial meeting with them. And then from there, we work to publish fiscal projection 1. So I wanted to give, myself and David and you, Kevin, kind of the opportunity to have dedicated intentional time to think and talk about the budget on any level. So we've set aside time every single Tuesday evening to allow staff to book time slots with us to go over their budget, to go over capital requests, to go over goals, or what they'd like to do next fiscal year. I think it's been really valuable and it's been successful. All of our time slots, have been booked. So we've had really great conversations now that I think we would have not had until after their submissions were due. So it gives them an opportunity to kind of have a meeting that there's not a lot of pressure on them, where they can really kind of talk about what they'd like to do.
Kind of opens up like an open line of communication between yourself and like the different department heads too throughout the process.
So I think they'll come to the budget meetings more prepared. We'll come to the budget meetings more prepared.
Awesome.
So we have 45 different departments / budgeted departmental areas in the budget process. What tool is used for the submission and entry of the budget? And beyond the figures, what do we expect department heads to provide as justification or other backup document for their submissions?
So we utilize a software called ClearGov. It's a really great tool that departments, it has our historical data on hand. So all of our prior year actuals, the FY24 budget, and it has a column for them to be able to enter their FY25 submissions. We also use that same tool for the capital budget as well. They can put all their requests there. And it's nice because it's also the same tool we use to develop the budget book. So everything, all of the historical figures and data live in this software, which takes away a lot of, kind of the manual work of putting together a budget document. And then of course, there's places for them to attach backup documents or supplemental materials. And then as far as expectations, so something that we did last fiscal year was we incorporated a priority to tie everything to the strategic plan. So we have what's called a strategic plan budget integration worksheet, and we request that any new initiatives, new projects, new programs, new staff, all tied to at least one outcome area of the strategic plan. And I think that's been really great because it makes it so the strategic plan isn't just a document that gets published and put on a shelf. It's a living, breathing document that really guides all of our decisions and our priorities for the budget.
So let's stick with the strategic plan there for a minute, because this is also the point in time where we start asking departments, as you mentioned, to think about their FY25 goals, because the alignment between what we fund and what our outcomes are going to be are strictly connected, right? So we're not going to allow someone to set a goal and then be held to account on that goal if they don't have the resources that are available to do that. So why don't you talk about that process in addition to those new things? What departments submit at this point as far as their goals go? At what level?
So department goals are, kind of more overarching at this point. So and again, they should tie to the strategic plan. The strategic plan should guide their goal setting process and what they're thinking about their goals. And then from there, it really is like a trickle down effect. So it starts at the select board level, down to department heads, and down to all employees, where really everything that we're doing can tie back to the strategic plan.
Great. And how those conversations that, and the new initiatives that you orchestrated this year, the conversations what have they centered the most on this year from your perspective? Goals, dollars and cents?
I would say a little bit of both.
Okay.
We also, one of the things we also ask for is an updated staffing plan. So we've had a lot of departments kind of taking that focus and thinking about where they need to be 5 years from now. There's a lot of retirements on the horizon, and a lot of conversations have kind of centered around how to plan for the future when, some of our longtime staff will be retiring, and also how that impacts, the budget figures now.
Okay. So this brings us in the point in the process where departments are now fully prepared. They have the revenue manual. They understand what resources may be available to them. They've assessed their own situations and are beginning to develop goals as they move forward into the fiscal year. And by the end of this week, they have a deadline to submit their budgets. What happens after their budgets are submitted?
So we are kind of the metaphorical red pen. So we will review every single line item in every single department's budget. We'll make adjustments as needed. And we'll also obviously see where we fall with revenue. So it's common for expenditures to come in higher than what is available for revenue. So that's when we kind of really have to drill down into what is being asked and what is a priority.
Right.
So we'll spend the next couple weeks after departments submit their budgets going through everything, and then that will take us into our budget meetings with the actual departments to kind of just go over everything.
So this next phase is just internal to the town manager's office, really our first look at tying everything together, seeing what kind of bottom line shakes out, how that compares to total revenues that are available, and I guess some preliminary questions, concerns, ideas maybe might not sit well with departments of how we can reduce any of that funding if we need to, if those bottom lines are. And I haven't seen a budget yet that has come out where departments haven't asked for more resources than we actually have available. And I think appropriately so, although we ask departments to collaborate with each other moving into the fiscal year as they develop their budgets, and then certainly operationally they're required, and expected to work collaboratively. This is probably the most siloed aspect, right? This is a little bit more home turf where they're really trying to put their best foot forward for their individual department, and then we'll bring things collaboratively together as we start this next phase of reviews. So, okay, so we get the first look at it internally. We spend time together. We actually sit down and have these conversations internally and build questions. And then that takes us to departmental meetings. I've heard these meetings called department defense meetings because they're defending their budget and advocating for themselves. But what do those look like? How long does it take? What's the process that we use for this part of the budget?
So this takes about 2 weeks, I would say. Like you said, we sit down and we book a room and we get into a room with every single department. I would say we spend about an hour with each department, maybe a little more, a little less, depending on, the size and the needs of that department. And then they kind of, like you said, they give their pitch for their department and their needs. I think it's important to note that we also do try to maintain level service. So we never want to introduce something to the community or residents and then have to take it away the next year because there's not funds. So I would say all departments are really diligent about at least, maintaining level service, and then their ideas and their initiatives are really to enhance and benefit the community. So it's a great conversation. I really enjoy these meetings. it's probably one of the only times where we kind of have this deep dive into every single department's budget, with them in the same room. So I find it really valuable.
And ultimately, at the end of these meetings, rarely do department heads give ground and make it easy on us from
No,
that
never.
perspective, because they've done a lot of work, and
Yeah.
that's a testament to their commitment to their departments and modernizing their operations and being the best local government in the world is trying to advocate for themselves. So then we have to make some tough decisions. As we mentioned in the earlier budgeting episode, it's the town manager's responsibility to present a balanced budget to the finance committee at least 90 days in advance of the annual town meeting. And then the finance committee, with strong support from our office and the departments, is charged with reviewing at the same level that we have just done, really at the three control points of personnel bottom line, expense bottom line, and then any capital or unique expenditures. So we move from department meetings to initial town manager's budget. Let's just reflect back on revenues. Where are we normally at with regards to some of the intergovernmental, like the state aid revenue, when we issue the first budget at the end of February?
So typically the governor releases the initial state budget sometime in January. So by the time fiscal projection 1 is published, we have right now our state aid is a true estimate. And by January, February, where we have a more accurate prediction, it does have to make its way through all the way to the governor signing the budget. But it's definitely a much better starting place for us, getting that first pass at the budget.
So we have that indication. We can shape up any revenue assumptions that have changed from, let's just call it mid-November, when the revenue manual is published, and whenever we actually have to put pen to paper in a very public way with fiscal projection 1 that we'll share first with the select board and then on to the finance committee. And the select board hears the budget, provides budget feedback. We're sharing the budget with them at the beginning of January each year to get their acknowledgement of alignment with the priorities that they've set. But it really, again, switches to the finance committee's leadership once we get into late February and early March. And what's that process from there, and what outcomes do we usually see?
Yeah, so the finance committee is a 9-member committee that's appointed by the town moderator, and it really is their responsibility to receive the budgets from departments, analyze them. They have public hearings where departments and the public can comment on these budgets, and then they ultimately vote on the proposed balanced budget to town meeting. So the finance committee holds a public hearing on fiscal projection 1, typically in March, and that is where every department comes in and presents their initial budget request to the committee as it's balanced. The committee does have a second opportunity to look at the budget, and that's in April, when there's the public hearing on the annual town meeting warrant and all the articles in the warrant. But the March public hearings are really the deep dives. So the finance committee has every department in, and the departments kind of present on their budget and sell their budget. And then the finance committee has opportunities to ask questions on behalf of the public, and then also obviously it's a public hearing, so the public is welcome and encouraged to attend and participate.
Yeah, and it is our most accessible and most detailed point in the year where residents can engage with us in the financial management of the community. Department heads come in and make a 20 or 30-minute presentation, given, depending on the complexity of their budget, and the school department makes presentations that's 2 or 3 times that length during the same hearing process. But it's really an opportunity to comment on actually each and every line item, staffing levels, contracted services, benefits, retirement, other post-employment benefits, health insurance, really the entire budget, and each and everything that we fund throughout a fiscal year is exposed through this budget hearing process. So it's really direct, participatory, democratic opportunities for residents to participate in the budget process. Now, all those nice words being said, we don't get a lot of participation, but we highly encourage it, and we spend one entire Thursday evening, an entire Saturday
Yep.
at the town hall in the selectmen's meeting room going through this budget. It's broadcast live by SMC, of course, but it's an open environment, and residents are encouraged to come in and participate. I know it across the country, there's folks in local government are always looking for ways to provide the best engagement on their budget process, and I think ours is really unique because it's just right there in one spot where we have the opportunity for residents to come in and understand and participate and ask questions.
I think Mark said it last episode too, that if you want to learn like a deep dive of the
Yes.
town, like watching the finance committee hearings is the best way to do that.
Yep.
So
That is true.
thank you guys.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I understand, a Thursday, it's a long Thursday evening and it's a long Saturday, but we do publish the full budget hearing schedule in the budget book. So if a resident had, they just wanted to ask about one certain department, our timing is, we try to estimate when the timing will start, but we publish that schedule in the budget books to give people an opportunity to really understand the flow of both of those days. And maybe if they just want to come in for one, they can. We also take written comments and questions beforehand that get provided to the finance committee. So
Yeah, those are really good points, because while we may engage in that process for 8 to 12 hours over those 2 days, I would say you could narrow your window of time down to 45 minutes to an hour
absolutely,
and not waste any of
Yep.
it if you only wanted to talk about one or two different departments that were of most interest to you as a resident. So
Check into the live stream, see where they're at, and
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
your decision on
Yep.
if they're ahead or behind schedule. So
Yeah.
that's right. So that gets us really to the end of the full review of fiscal projection one, and the finance committee has the opportunity to take ownership of line items in the budget, suggest changes, make recommendations. It is their budget that goes to town meeting through the budget book, and we work collaboratively with them and developing that tool and that book and finalizing the budget process and making recommendations to town meeting. So I think generally speaking, over the last few years, there haven't been a lot of changes that we've made between fiscal projection 1 and 2. A lot of that has to do with our overall financial stability associated with the override and those commitments that we made to the community. We've been in a position where we've been well resourced and able to spend within the limits and provide the resources to the community that we promised through the override. So that's made the process a lot more consistent and a lot less surprises, which no drama in the budget process should be a goal for everyone, in my opinion, and we're in a really good spot there, in my opinion. So, but ultimately, where does the rubber meet the road whenever it comes to the approval of the budget? What's the final step in the process, and what happens from that point forward?
So the final step in the process is town meeting. So ultimately, town meeting votes on the budget. The budget is a standalone article in the town meeting warrant. There's an article for the operating budget and then also the capital budget. So as I said, we have public hearings on the town meeting warrant, usually in April. It's another opportunity for public comment and participation. And then from there, we present the budget at town meeting. That is also another opportunity if, there are questions or town meeting members or residents want to kind of hone in, they can. And then once the budget passes, we kind of get going from there. So it's not, we start planning and prioritizing for the next fiscal year, which is just around the corner after town meeting in May. We go from there.
Yeah, so that body may be different for us here in New England, but of course we remind everyone the town meeting is our legislative body with 242 elected representatives here in Shrewsbury, and they are the ones who hold the purse strings, as folks will remind you in local government civics class, and They get to make that final decision on how we spend the dollars and set the control points for us throughout the fiscal year. That is then overseen and with limited ability to make adjustments by the finance committee. So that's really a comprehensive, nuanced, detailed dive into the intricacies of our budget process and how we manage it. And it's been really successful over the past few years, and it's really matured. Hasn't been the process that's always been in place, but we get a little bit better each and every year. The revenue manual gets better. Our integration with the strategic plan is improving year over year into our second year with the strategic plan. And I think it brings transparency to the process and allows everyone to understand what we want to do. Of course, the budget is the number one policy document of any local government. And I think our process is one of the best that folks can look to if they're looking for new ideas for their budget process or trying to be more transparent. That's certainly our goal, and we look into that. So this has probably been one of the most detailed dives and nuanced, nerdy episodes that we've run into. So at the end of the budget process, we all need a little break and relief. And I know one of the best ways that some folks like to do that is responsible enjoyment of nuanced and intricate spirits. So, Alex,
Yes.
I know that you're a tequila fan
Yes.
in a responsible and intricate way.
Yes.
So, the best. What is the best tequila?
In
your opinion?
In my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
probably Espolon. It is affordable, accessible, but very good, smooth.
It's the Shrewsbury of
Yes.
tequilas.
And great in margaritas.
Okay. Taylor?
I like Casamigos Blanco tequila.
Yeah.
It's my favorite. Did do that tequila tasting in Disney with my mom, so that was fun. I don't remember the names of those ones, but they're expensive,
was a
so
good
it's
time.
better. It was better for me not to remember.
That's good. Good. All right.
Kevin.
Kevin?
For me, I have to say, so one of my wife's cousins, Steve, was on this big tequila kick a couple years ago, and it really opened my eyes up to how intricate tequila can be, just like bourbon or something like that, any fine spirit. So the best tequila that I ever had is a really expensive one. It was Patron Platinum, and like I swear it was so good, like I wanted to chew it. Like that's how good the tequila was. So I'm gonna go with that. Not that I've ever had it since, or will ever buy my own bottle, but Patron Platinum was
You'll think about it.
really
Yeah.
good. Yeah. So, no, I appreciate that. And at the end of any good budget process, if you're not ready for a shot of tequila or two, then you didn't work hard enough. Right? So, well, Alex, we really appreciate you being on the Town Manager Download and sharing your insights, and appreciate all the work that you put into making our budget process as successful as it has been. So thanks for coming on. This has been another great conversation on the Town Manager Download. Reminder to folks, if you have a question or comment, you can reach us at tmdownload@shrewsburyma.gov. So on behalf of Taylor Galusha, I'm Kevin Mizikar. Thank you for listening.